So if you just clicked off my comparison video between the M28U and this Acer Nitro 282K, you're gonna know that I didn't test out the Xbox Series S at the end of that video. So I have the Xbox Series S here, got a couple cameras set up so we can capture every single angle. Got the Series S fired up. We're gonna be playing a couple of titles today and testing out the features that you can get with the Series S within this Xbox menus, within the monitor itself, and which one I think is better performance and a better buy for you for your Xbox console, whether it's a Series S or Series X. All right, let's jump in, you guys. So as we know, the next gen consoles are packed with the HDMI 2.1, which gives us access to that 4K 120Hz HDR experience. It also unlocks a few things within that feature set, which of course is variable refresh rate. But the HDR is a big factor because not every game has 120Hz. Some do 4K 60Hz. And that's why I have HDR enabled currently on this Acer Nitro that we're going to be testing first, then we'll be jumping over to the M28U, but I'm going to allow HDR because we are going to be playing Back 4 Blood. So first a look at the settings here. We'll dive into the settings within the Xbox menu. What we see is of course the drop down for 4K, and we see the drop down for 120Hz for 60Hz. We also see over in the video menu that 4K is allowed. We are getting HDR10 and auto HDR. And we are getting allow variable refresh rate. And then at the right hand top of the screen, you'll see that it does say 120Hz. So it's currently receiving a 120Hz signal, although that may not materialize in game. But I want to jump into our first game here, and that's going to be Back 4 Blood. This game is fantastic in my opinion. At least the experience I've had on PC has been phenomenal. I've done a bit of gameplay here on console, but we're gonna do a bit more here today. So one of the big reasons I really like this game, this Back 4 Blood, is the fact that on this Series S, we're getting a full 4K 120Hz capability. And as you can see in the top right, it's bouncing between 119 and 120 Hz refresh rate. Hey, this is max performance that we're looking for next gen consoles, and the reason you buy this type of monitor. So a couple of features within the menu that I wanna point out here. It's the fact that within our gaming setup, we do get access to providing like an aim point. You can put your sights right on the middle of the screen. Some people might consider it a bit of hacking or cheating in a way, but it's also a good way to get used to that center point on your screen being where you want to aim. You also get HDMI black level adjustment. So as you have HDMI plugged in, you can change that black level performance to be able to get the best performance you can out of your console, because you may not get additional calibration when in HDR. And that's usually the case with most monitors, so at least you get something here. Outside of that, there's not much calibration you can do. The brightness and contrast is locked because you're in HDR mode. But there is a teeny bit, like I mentioned before, that you can control. I mean, having played this on PC, it's really not a comparison. All I can really hope for right now is good quality motion capability. The visuals aren't bad, you know, but that's the game more than anything. It's not the monitor. What I will say about that though, if we go back and kind of take a look, as I'm in the shadows here, I'm just kind of losing a lot of detail. It's kind of crushing the detail. But that was the case for PC too, because this is a very, very dark game. I'm not going to complain too much because the motion actually seems really good. As we look around, I'm not seeing that motion blur. Like I kind of saw it in the menus. I'm not really seeing it here. Like this experience right here is similar to PC. You know, kind of pausing, teeny bits of reflection off the street, some good detail in the actual gas station here. The skyline's looking good. Yeah, there's a little bit of banding is what I call it. It's like where the gradient can't quite provide as much color range. Like for a $300 console on this monitor, that's actually pretty good. Oh yeah. Hey, this ain't bad, you guys. Okay, here's our performance in kind of a darker scenario here. What are we seeing? Aha, suck it. Oh shoot, oh shoot. The black, you can see it's kind of crushing some detail. It's about as dark as PC was. I'm gonna kind of rate this as not terrible, actually. The monitor is doing a good job. As we know, this monitor is not as bright as the M28U. So it could be a tad bit better, but I wouldn't say it's, you know, amazing. And part of that is this game. This game is just it's a tough game. It's a tough game to really bring that brightness level up without crushing the detail there. So now we're on to the motion test with Warzone rather than just the contrast in color and black level performance like you get in Back 4 Blood. And we're gonna do that with Warzone. And there's something I have to mention about this monitor. It's the fact that when it's in HDR, probably like most monitors out there, it locks your pixel response rate to its normal setting. So you can't use the off and you cannot use the extreme. It's locked there, but we are getting variable refresh rate and we are technically getting 120 Hertz. So as long as the Series S can perform at those levels, that's what we will receive. But we're gonna grade it on overall performance here in Warzone. So initial performance is good. One of the things I do wanna mention just before we get into the motion is one of these things that the monitor was really good at was contrast and overall brightness and not blowing out the detail. So we look up at the sun here and it's looking really good. It's not blowing out that detail and overtaking my screen. I'm happy to see that. What? Dude, I'm gonna report that, dude. That wasn't the worst freaking scoping I've seen ever, man. So overall motion, just kind of initial look, a teeny bit of ghosting, motion blur off into the distance. And this guy gets owned, baby. Teeny bit of motion blur off into the distance, but you know, up close, not bad. Hey, look at that. I picked that dude up from pretty far away. Contrast looking good. And I don't feel any noticeable input lag. It's not like I am receiving like a, you know, something a second late. Woo-wee! Hey, he got me fair and square. But good motion handling through and through. Oh, get out. Barely missed. Dang, dude, if I hadn't gotten shot. Oh, okay, let's watch this replay. Yep, great motion through and through. He's able to turn lock onto me, make the shot, and no effective motion blur happening in real time. That pretty much wraps it up for the Acer. We're gonna move on to the Gigabyte M28U, but I wanna let you know that overall, the motion capability was better than I expected for the Series S. I expected kind of a lot of drag, a lot of like mushiness to the game and quite a bit of motion blur, but 4K 120 Hertz, looking really good so far. And I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, the pixel response rate that we saw from the full review that I did. The pixel response rate was fantastic on this guy. And I think that's gonna be very, very hard to beat by the Gigabyte. The question is it worth $300 for you? So let's jump over to the Gigabyte and see if we can find any deficiencies here that would warrant spending the $300 extra. So first and foremost, I have to tell you I've been using this M28U for over a month, probably close to 2 months. It was a fantastic purchase in my opinion, and it's been very reliable. And the number one thing that I love about this monitor is the fact that the menus themselves are very advanced, more so than almost any other monitor on the market. Actually, any other monitor that I've currently reviewed on the market. That I can say fairly. And where that comes into play is right here. This HDR calibration, looking through it, you have light enhance, color enhance, dark enhance, local dimming, and well, of course, reset picture. But that is 4 different calibrating modes that you can use within HDR while you're playing your console that this monitor, the one sitting to the right of me that I'm not recording right now, the Acer Nitro, just doesn't have. On top of that, it has calibration over super resolution, so kind of a sharpness scalability. And then it has overdrive control. Whew, I could have yelled that louder. I kind of held back there, but this is fantastic to be able to get overdrive control on your console, because now I can go through and calibrate based on the game that I'm playing. Now, I like where the picture is right now, so I'm not gonna change that HDR setting, but maybe what I will do when we get into game is I will see if I can find a dark scene where I can enhance that dark and make this game just a little bit better. But before we get into some gameplay here, I want to talk to you about today's sponsor, and that is Raycon, you guys. They've been a longtime friend of the channel. I kind of bashed them early on some of the features that they didn't provide on their earbuds, calling them comparable to other manufacturers out there for similar prices. Now, what I have to tell you is they've fixed a lot about their earbuds. I have two here. I have the Fitness and the Everyday earbuds. And one of the things that they did was so fantastic that I've actually ditched my Samsung Galaxy Live buds for this Raycon, and these are the Fitness ones. Similar profile, similar capabilities, wireless charging, great sounding bass, some control within my native apps for sound. They're just fantastic. They fit well in the ear, and honestly, if you don't have these yet or you haven't tested out a pair of Raycons, go check out the description below. I've got a link to the earbuds. They're sponsoring the channel. Let's support them. But I've had such a great experience with their newly designed earbuds. Again, they are the Fitness and the Everyday earbuds, but I prefer the Fitness ones because of the fit and a little bit of the finish and the performance overall. So go check out our sponsor, Raycon. I've got a link down in the description below. Ooh, this is feeling a bit more spongy. This gameplay, that was one of my concerns going in on this monitor. The Acer did a fantastic job because of the pixel response rate capability. We're able to control it here though. So what I'm gonna do before we go in, it doesn't feel as spongy, but there's a bit more motion blur when changing it to balanced versus smart. It was probably on the faster setting on smart, just because we have a higher frames per second, but it feels faster in response, but I'm getting a bit more motion blur altogether. And I think that might be the game. So I've actually brought down the brightness a bit here to be able to see how well this does with overall contrast in this game. And so far looking good. Good reflections on the street here. Let's open the door. So once again, it's a little hard to get over the motion, but the color here, it's not bad. I would have to say that these orange pillars here, these guys are a bit oversaturated. I don't think that's naturally how they look or how they look on PC or the Acer over here. So we seem to be oversaturating some colors, but I look up at the sun and the sun actually looks very good. The skyline's not bad. It still has that same banding and that same gradient that the Acer had. My team sucks. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, man, but the color just seems a teeny bit off. It's not terrible. See, and this is absolutely where the Gigabyte and the extra calibration capability that you get way outperforms Acer Nitro. Like, black level performance, overall contrast in dark scenes exclusively, the Gigabyte does a 10 times better job. I mean, fantastic job here in bringing out detail in those dark areas without like being too grainy, you know? Like, it's actually giving me the capability to see inside of this garage. Whereas if we look at the Acer Nitro, that's not at all how it went. It was almost too dark, and I couldn't calibrate that out. So I think we carved out a slight win for this Gigabyte here. In the overall kind of black level performance and shadow detail, it did very strong. And that has to do with the extra calibration you get. But it did fall behind in kind of the color accuracy portion. A little bit weird in those oranges. And I would also say the green was a little bit odd as well. And even though this isn't a motion test, it did struggle a bit with motion. I had to dial that in a bit. but because those menus are there, I get to do that, whereas the Acer, you don't. But I want to jump into Warzone because this may make a huge difference. If the motion isn't that great in Warzone on this Gigabyte, then I would tell you it's not worth the money. So comment below for me, you guys, if you think this motion test in Warzone is going to do poorly, put it down in the comments. And if you think this is the monitor to get and it's absolutely going to beat out the Acer Nitro, put it in the comments below. I want to know what you guys think before we get into this actual test. And we'll find out at the end, of course, but going into it, I'm not quite sure what to think here. So I put this back on the Smart Overdrive so it can select based on the frame rate that we're getting. That seemed to be doing pretty well for me overall using this as an everyday monitor. We can see we're jumping between 90 and 120 frames per second, so that should do a fairly decent job for us. Initial inspection, the color quality is great. We're getting similar color, at least in this game, to the Acer Nitro. The brightness, because we're able to kind of scale that back with the HDR calibration, is actually looking really good. I like it a bit more here, looking up at this sun, than I did on the Acer Nitro. Now that doesn't mean it's better, I like it a bit more. You know, we are getting a bit of oversaturation in the purple on the gun here. It looks almost like a pinkish purple, bright neon. You know, it's kind of supposed to, but it doesn't normally look like that, I know, because I play on PC. Ooh, getting a little spongy here. Just the overall kind of handling of the controller here does seem to be a bit delayed. And like I said, I did notice that also in Back 4 Blood. So it's not just this game that I'm experiencing that in. Well, shit. Well, obviously you guys saw some glitching. I think that had to do with the opponents I was up against. They had some pretty laggy connection there. But overall, outside of that, it was a bit spongy. The controls were a bit spongy, leading me to believe that the input lag on this monitor is actually probably really high, which is a downside that this has that the Acer Nitro doesn't. Now, I can't verifiably test that, but that's just the way it feels. And now that this game is heating up, there's a bit of tension with this lag going on. But overall, my experience with the motion, it's not that it was bad. It wasn't fantastic. Now, overall, my experience wasn't as good here as it was on the Acer Nitro. But there's some things I want to weigh and consider before I'm telling you guys that the extra $300 is worth it. So let's end this video by having a discussion here, and you guys can put down in the comments below what you think as well. Well, here we are to answer the million-dollar question. Is it worth $300 extra to go out and get this Acer Nitro XV282K over the Gigabyte M28U? And to put it simply, you guys, each one of these monitors has their own respective strength. I think personally, the M28U is going to be strong for any story-based game mode, gameplay. It's fully going to depend on the games that you play on a daily basis. But if you're going for something that's more well-rounded, that will also do well in story mode, but kicks total butt in first-person shooter style hack and slash games where you have fast-paced motion, you're going to get a better overall experience with this Acer Nitro. Things like input lag were better, pixel response rate were better. It led to a more pleasurable fast-paced gameplay. We didn't see as much motion blur and spongy feel in the game on the Series S than we did with the M28U. That being said, the M28U came in clutch on some of its advanced calibration technologies built into the monitor on its own. And that's not something you can totally ask for from every single monitor, but the Gigabyte delivers. So that is my conclusion, you guys. I think they're both fantastic. Obviously, for the Series S, I'm probably going to tell you this: the M28U is more than satisfactory. $599 for a $300 console is probably the most you want to spend out of that style of gameplay. But if you have a Series X, if you have a PlayStation 5, you're probably looking more towards this Acer Nitro, especially if you're a dual user, PC and console alike. This is the one I recommend if that's you. Well-rounded in all respects. Okay, you guys, thanks for watching. Hope it wasn't too long. Please subscribe to the channel. We are going to be dropping tons more on videos related to monitors, gaming monitors, 4K resolution. I actually have over here, you guys can't see it off camera, I have the Samsung Odyssey G70A for you to check out. So hit that notification bell, hit all notifications, because that one will be dropping shortly after this. And I'm gonna go ahead and put a playlist right here at the end of the video for you guys to click on. It's gonna outline all of the different monitors that I've tested on console and the performance related to that. So hopefully that'll help you in making your buying decision on the next monitor you get. So without further ado, you guys, I'll catch you on the next video.